Hello, my name is Omalabe, and this is my lab for oscillation presentation. Introduction. The purpose of this lab is to study the motion of a mass spring system experiencing 2D oscillation along with the force of gravity, and to compare this observed motion with the glow script predicted motion based on the following physics models and principles. The models and physics principles being used in this experiment are, firstly, the forces being gravity and spring, both of which are not constant, as well as the energy principle concerning kinetic energy, gravitational and spring potential energy, as well as the pendulum time period formula, the position velocity update formula, the universal law of gravitation, and Newton's second law. All of these equations can be seen on this slide. In my main result, the observed data matched the prediction data exactly in the x-axis but was slightly scaled in the y-axis. However, the energy principle was observed throughout. Bracket data. The given values for my data were a calibration length of 0.7 meter, a calculated relaxed length of 0.123 meters, a mass of 0.402 kilograms, and a calculated K value of 6.83 newtons per meter. As for my observations from this data, my start time was 0 seconds, so 0.47 seconds raw but then adjusted. My initial position was negative 0.123, negative 06.720 meters in XYZ axis. My initial velocity was 0 in all axes, and then my length of my video was 9.497 seconds, which rounded up about 0.095 frames per second. Here you can see my code. On the right, there's the code that involves all of the constant values and the values inputted from my tracker data, as well as my equations for my spring values and all of my energy values. On the left, you can see my main looped code, which first calculates the net force on the mass, which it uses to calculate the velocity and the position of the mass, and then uses that to update its energy and calculate the change in energy for every time second. All of this is done with the time frame of delta t, which is again found in the previous slide. So, what are my results? Firstly, I found that the energy was constant throughout my data. This was shown through the fact that delta E was 0 throughout the graph, which you can see here on the left with the orange line. For the other energies, the potential energy of gravity and the kinetic energy oscillated consistently throughout the time period. However, the potential energy of the spring was slightly inconsistent. As for my observations versus my observations exactly match my prediction data in x-axis, which you can see on the bottom left. However, on the y-axis, my observations, while they had a similar period, but the amplitude was much longer for the observations than the predictions. Discussion. So what do these results mean? Firstly, the energy principle was observed in both the prediction and the observation data, as the energy stayed constant and delta E was 0 throughout both of these data sets. As for my oscillation period, I calculated them for both the x and the y axis with my observed data, and I found the following values. For the x-axis, the oscillation happened every 1.614 seconds, while in the y-axis, the oscillation happened every 1.589 seconds. So as you can see, both axes had a similar period. However, while looking at the data, both of the axes were in sync, so the peaks of one axis was not necessarily the same as the peak of the other axis. This could be possible due to the force of gravity, which had an added impact in the y-axis compared to the x-axis. What are the possible errors I may have had during this experiment? Firstly, I could have had a slight calculation error, both for my relaxed length value and my K value. This would be due to human error, and it could have been the explanation for the observation in the y-axis, with the observed being stretched compared to the predicted data. I could have also had some slight computational error with my coding or the computer, which could have also explained the differences in the y-axis. Finally, I could have had some error while manually tracking my data. Thank you.